Vasishta continued, the reality is the infinite, undivided consciousness which, not being an object of observation, is unknowable. Well, we've heard this before, haven't we? Perhaps you think there's quite a lot of repetition going on. But one thing to consider is, what mood were you in when you read this before? And in fact, what kind of response do you have for this statement? Is it, oh, we've heard this before? Or is it, am I in tune with this understanding? I don't just mean intellectually. Is this your own realization? Is there a certain time of the day which you set aside for feeling spiritual? What sort of effect does this statement have if you just had an argument with your partner, if you've just fallen out, or you're just coming home from work and you're looking forward to your evening meal? Or maybe you're in a bit of a funk and not feeling very inspired. Or perhaps you're feeling pretty chirpy and everything's going your way. So, in all these different cases and in many others, what do we do with this statement? The reality is the infinite, undivided consciousness which, not being an object of observation, is unknowable. It's unknowable. It's realizable though. Are we in this realization? Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, etc. are names which have by repeated use come to be regarded as real. Well, that's if you're a Hindu. If you're not a Hindu, then there are other parameters by which you understand reality. Perhaps you believe that the word of God can be put between the pages of a book. You might be religious in that way. Perhaps you're political. Perhaps you believe in the Communist Manifesto or the importance of the free market. Perhaps you're a rationalist and you like to believe what you can experience with your own senses. So you have to look at what you've come to regard as real and take a look into that, because usually the only reason that these things are real for you is through some kind of repeated affirmation, either from others or from yourself. So this is what we put in place of the realization which is spelled out in the first sentence. We put in our own model or theory about reality, and we believe it to the hilt, rather than believing in the consciousness which these notions arose within. Creation, not having a cause or a reason, is non-existent, and creation is the reality that you're subscribing to. But one cannot assert that there is non-existence or that there is something. In other words, we're not preaching nihilism here, or nihilism. All beliefs are limited. What's being put across here, what's being suggested here is that everything you believe is actually limited. And you can experience the unlimited directly if you let go of the limited. When one's mind rests in perfect tranquility, what it is the reality. And this is when it's not being agitated by notions. Most of the time we're agitated in a state of agitation, and this is what prevents us from realizing this supreme consciousness, because we think, well, it can't be that, because we'll just become soporific or quietist or not care about anything. These are all the sort of misconceptions which arise from this. The idea that we can rest in perfect tranquility when there are so many things to be done is it actually makes some people more agitated, and they can't take this on board. But when the mind's resting in perfect tranquility, it's the most efficient state for the mind to be in. And it's real. This is the reality, not all the anxieties and notions which we put in the way of it. In that reality, this world appears to be. There's clearly something going on. The world appearance does not arise out of nothing. Hence, one has to conclude that Brahman alone is, even in the form of this creation. So the thing is, we're not rejecting all these notions. We're just realizing the limited nature of them. All these notions arise in Brahman. Everything arises in Brahman. Everything arises in awareness. If there's no awareness, how could we even say that there is anything? Creation is but a word, a name. The reality is Brahman. I, you, and the world are names that exist in Brahman as Brahman. So we must be careful we don't get into any kind of subtle rejections and subtle divisions. Awareness is all-encompassing, and everything is of the nature of that awareness. We just don't get sucked into it. We just don't get hoodwinked by it anymore. The ocean, the mountain, the clouds, earth, etc. are all the unborn and uncreated. The universe exists in Brahman as the great silence. And I think this is the first time it's been referred to as silence, although I've referred to it as silence in the past. Because you can tune into this realization through listening to that silence. Silence is what allows all sound to arise within it. All sound would be meaningless without silence. The seer exists in the seen as seeing on account of his own essential nature. There is only the seeing going on. The seer and the seen are what happen when we start thinking about what is going on. So his own essential nature is the seeing. The doer exists as the deed, since there is no reason for him to do anything. There is simply doing going on. Doing. I'm not sure that the translation is very helpful here. Since there is no reason for him to do anything, it doesn't really follow on from the first phrase, the doer exists as the deed. But I think if we go back to the previous sentence, it's to do with the essential nature. This is the only thing that is doing anything. This is the only thing that is happening. So we do not need to hypothesize a doer, and we do not need to hypothesize anything that the doer is doing. There is only the doing, there is only what is happening. So there's only the seeing, there's only the hearing, and so on, relating to what we normally call sensory perception. And then there's action, there's things going on, there are things happening. We normally say so and so is doing that, but there are just things happening. In it there is neither a knower nor a doer, neither inertness nor experiencer, neither void nor substance. Life and death, truth and falsity, good and evil, all these are of one substance, like waves in the ocean. The division between the seer, subject, and the seen, object, is fanciful. It's notional.